Good morning and welcome, everybody. I want to welcome all of you to our first biotech caucus that will be held virtually since the COVID-19 pandemic has started. My name is Bob Coughlin. I'm the president and CEO of MassBio, and I want to I can't thank you all enough for participating today. Just so you know, all of you folks that are watching via YouTube right now, this is the largest attendance that we have had at a biotech caucus since we started having biotech caucuses in the year 2007. So we are all to be congratulated. The topic today, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be so timely. We're going to talk about COVID-19, and the title in the headline of our caucus event today is called All Hands on Deck, the fight against COVID-19 in Massachusetts. And today's program is going to highlight some of the amazing work that's being done by the life sciences industry, much of it, folks, right here in Massachusetts. Work that's being done to test, treat, and immunize the world from this unprecedented public health threat. I don't think any of us thought at our last biotech caucus in person, that was probably about a year ago, I don't think any of us thought that we would be coming here today saying that the most important thing to the world's economy and the most important thing to people feeling safe again and having a sense of being able to go back to normal, right? And a sense of normal or new normal, whatever it's going to be. I don't think we'd ever think that it was going to come down to a vaccine. I don't think we ever were going to thought that we didn't have adequate testing capabilities or treatments or vaccines to face a pandemic like this. I know I didn't. And most of the people I talked to didn't think that we'd be in this situation, but we are. So now we're going to talk about how we're going to get out of it, because science, folks, will get us out of this. And we're going to talk about what's happening right now here today. And I'm so excited that we've been able to pull this caucus together. I'm so excited to introduce the panel to you. But before I do, I want to thank the Biotech Caucus for hosting today's event. You know, we're fortunate today because we have the Biotech Caucus co-chairs with us, both Leader Joe Wagner and Senator Joe Boncore, and both of who, you know, I've had the pleasure of working with for many, many years. And Leader Wagner, we had the pleasure of serving together in the House. And I go back to, you know, what brought me to this industry is the fact that my wife and I had a kid with cystic fibrosis. And obviously I cared a lot about this industry because I did not want my child to die. When you look at what has happened in the 18 years since he's been with us with cystic fibrosis, he's finally on a medicine that's keeping him alive, that was invented and made right here in Massachusetts. It took 18 years and about $13 billion to get to that point. And I could sit here right now today and say, because of what academia, industry, and our partners in government have done to make Massachusetts the best place in the world for this industry, I don't have to have nightmares about going to his funeral anymore. And you can only imagine how important that is, right, to all of us. And that's why I can't thank our co-chairs enough. And I was hoping that before we get into our caucus today, you know, we could have a few words from Leader Wagner, who's been a longtime patient-driven member of the House of Representatives. Could you say a few words to the attendees of our caucus today? Ladies and gentlemen, Leader Joe Wagner.
Bob, thank you very, very much. Those were really inspiring remarks. I know how personal the work of the council and member companies is to you. And I'm so happy that you're in a good and better place. I want to thank the MassBio Council for the opportunity and honor to make a few brief remarks. I've got to give a shout out to all the member companies online. I've got to give a shout out to Bob Coughlin and the work he does at the head of Mass Biotech Council, and Susan Martin, with whom we deal as well. And your whole team over there really has life sciences and your industries on the map here in Massachusetts. And without those efforts, it wouldn't be in quite the same place. So I want to recognize my co-chair of the caucus, Senator Joe Boncore. I always say 2 Joes are better than 1. We hope you would agree with that. And I want to welcome, as I recognize my Senate co-chair and colleague legislators and staff who are members of the caucus and participating today, making it the largest number that you've had participating. it's certainly timely. When the onset of the pandemic started, it's interesting. Mary Lou Sutters was in my office on a couple of matters that were important to my district, and she got called out of the meeting to go up to the governor's office. And it was on that day that he appointed her to head up the COVID command. But in the first 30 seconds of that meeting, when she sat down, I said, you must not have enough hours in a day. And she said, well, this is going to take a lot of people working together. She said it's going to require, in order to get beyond the vaccine, and she said that's going to take about a year. That was in the first 30 seconds of a conversation that we had back months ago. She had so succinctly captured it. And when I think about the work that you all do, the panel here today, how timely this is, the subject matter. And Bob, when you think back to what you said about 2007, the commitment the legislature made at that point, a 10-year billion-dollar commitment that leveraged some of that $13 billion commitment of funds and expenditure that you've talked about. The fact that that effort and all of our efforts in partnership together has put Massachusetts on the map as a leader in life sciences. The fact that we are at the forefront of something that none of us could have imagined. And the vaccine could be found and made and manufactured right here in Massachusetts. It's phenomenal when you look at it collectively. So I'm looking forward to the exciting panel that you put together for today. I'm honored to be a part of it. I am honored to serve as co-chair of the Biotech Caucus, and I'll kick it back to you. I don't have my glass of water here, but and I'm looking forward to hearing from my colleague and then all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Leader. Thank you for your years of commitment to this industry, to your constituents, and ultimately, I like to say the patient population. Everything that you do is because you care about the people of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And the same goes for your co-chair of the Biotech Caucus. It's my pleasure to introduce another person who really, really has been a true advocate for innovation, for the life sciences, for everything that we do to help sick people. Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Joe Boncory.
Thank you, Bob. And I just want to, along with the leader, thank you and Susan and everyone at MassBio who continues to collaborate with legislators to work on this issue. We're bringing this panel here today to discuss, what's next and what issues we will be facing, but more importantly, what the solutions are. I also want to thank my co-chair, Leader Wagner. It's been an incredible journey in the legislature, getting to know you. I'm looking forward to the next time we're together in person to share some laughs and a couple stories. And the panelists here today, thank you for taking the time out of your day to inform and bring information to legislators and their staffers on what's next, as I previously said. And to the legislators and staffers who are here today, you're the most important people on this call. You will be disseminating information down to your constituents, down to the people in your own individual economies of how next we're going to handle this situation. Over the last several months, while we in the legislature have been working to address this public health crisis in our communities and provide for relief for constituents during an economic fallout, those in the life sciences industry have been working tirelessly to provide answers to the most pressing questions about this novel virus. From the outset of the COVID-19 pandemic, I can remember specifically about a week into this, calling Bob Coughlin and saying, Bob, with life, this is an opportunity for life science, like the life science industry in Massachusetts, in the legislature, to be a leader. And he said, Joe, I've been on the phone for countless hours with the governor and the lieutenant governor for the last 2 weeks. So again, Bob, thank you for your leadership and MassBio's leadership in really getting ahead of this issue and helping and, along with public health experts to offer critical guidance. I am proud to chair this caucus along with the leader, but I'm equally proud to represent the engine of the Commonwealth's innovation economy in Kendall Square. Cambridge, Kendall, and MIT businesses and research institutions are at the front line of this fight against COVID. The Commonwealth is dependent upon this industry, and this country is dependent upon this Commonwealth, not just for their public health solutions, but for public policy too. So to the panelists today, please know that we in the Massachusetts legislature rely on your research, your data, and your wisdom to continue throughout this pandemic. So please, thank you for your guidance on our decision-making and public policy initiatives. We appreciate the tremendous endeavors that you all have undertaken on diagnostics, therapies, and eventually a vaccine. As we continue to adjust to this new normal, we look forward to learning from you and ensuring that the science and the data lead our discussions and policy making, especially as they relate to public health in the Commonwealth. Our country relies and is looking towards Massachusetts for these answers and these solutions. So thank you, and I'm looking forward to this panel.
Thank you so much, Senator, and thank you to you, the representative, Mr. Leader. We really appreciate it. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention to all of you in the audience that, hey, in Massachusetts, in the last 10 plus years, we've gone from a top 10 biotech cluster in the world to the best place in the world for innovation and for this business. And it didn't happen by chance. It happened because of many of the things you were talking about, that the senator and the representative just mentioned. The 10-year $1 billion life science initiative. Now we have a 5-year $500 million life science initiative. Government has become our partner in this region. That wasn't the case in the early 2000s or the late 90s. This is something that's changed. We've had 122 colleges and universities. We had top 5 of the top 6 NIH-funded hospitals. The big change that has happened is that government decided they wanted to step up and create that environment so that we could be the best place in the world for the industry. I've said it 1,000 times. It wasn't because the traffic was good. Certainly wasn't because the weather's great, right? How did it happen? It happened because we had a plan for academia, industry, and government to work together. And that is why we are leading the way as it relates to this COVID-19 pandemic and the profound direct impact on Massachusetts. Just in Massachusetts alone, 144,000 total cases of COVID-19. But let me tell you this, there's more than 90 companies, life science companies, that are leading the way in developing new tests, therapies, and vaccines. We are playing an outsized role in the battle against this pandemic, the same way we are normally fighting the battles against all unmet medical need. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Today's panel of experts is going to shed some of the light on the innovative work at their companies and how the COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated the next generation, right? There's a lot of silver linings that are coming from this, folks. I'm obviously going to give a plug to telemedicine because we've been working on that for a long time. Different subject. It's happening now. Let's think about what we're doing as it relates to testing, therapies, and diagnostics, and how this pandemic has forced us and encouraged us and made us to work more collaboratively, quickly, and effectively in some of the outcomes we're going to discuss here today, and we're excited to share that with you. If you have any question and comments, folks, type it into the YouTube chat box, and those questions will get to me through the chat function. And if we have time, we'll do some open Q&A at the end. But right now, I'm going to introduce our panelists are going to introduce themselves to you. And I want to start with Sharon Joshi, who is the president and CEO of NanoDx. Sharon, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and NanoDx's work to develop a much needed, rapid point-of-care COVID-19 test?
You got it, Bob. Thank you very much. I really appreciate all that you do here at MassBio, and thanks for having me on. I'm honored to be here at this really important time on this subject and speaking to the respected legislators. So I'm Sharon Joshi, president and CEO of NanoDx, or Nano Diagnostics. We're right here in Southborough, Massachusetts. I've been in the medtech industry for over 30 years. All of it in Massachusetts. I did my undergraduate in Boston at Northeastern University in engineering and biology, and I did my MBA in Babson, which is in Wellesley. So Nano Diagnostics has a rapid point-of-care test platform to accurately measure most any charged molecule in saliva or blood, and it can do so in about 2 minutes. Our markets include, of course, COVID, influenza, traumatic brain injury, stroke, sepsis, among others. And we did, so anywhere where there's a disease state, where there's a strong correlation between a biomarker and a diagnostic and a need for a quick and accurate test, that's our sweet spot. So really, our story this year has been really about a pivot. We started this year preparing to launch a rapid point of care test for traumatic brain injury, or concussions, if you will, really focused on the military, the sports, and the elderly care markets. But when COVID changed the world, we quickly pivoted. And our scientists, our chief scientific officer, proved very quickly that our platform could in fact measure the SARS-CoV-2 antigen, and could not only do so, but do so accurately in 2 minutes, and with similar results to that of a laboratory-based test called a PCR, or polymerase chain reaction test. So really, the NanoDX system has 3 different parts of it. It has a handheld device that's about the size, a little bit larger than a cell phone, and allows you to scan an employee ID badge, a passport, a license, check off any symptoms you may have. And it has a base station analyzer about the size of a small toaster, and then a single-use disposable cartridge about the size, in fact, exactly the size of a business card I'm holding up right here. And to perform a test, you simply take the sample, whether it's saliva or blood, or if you have to, nasopharyngeal, and place it into the cartridge, into a small cap on the front of it, snap the cap in place, and place it right into the analyzer. And within 2 minutes, you have your result right there, right then. And so how does it work? So the reason why we can create accuracy with speed is all due to something known as a nanowire circuit. And our scientists have developed this over time. The circuit is on a silicone chip, and it has a nanowire on it that we can impregnate with an antibody that attracts anything we want to in blood or saliva or any bodily fluid. And in this case, it's the COVID virus. And as the sample runs across our circuit, we can measure a direct change in our surface charge, and every single virus molecule that hits our nanowire, we can measure it with high degrees of accuracy. Our test has such a low limit of detection, we can measure as little as 10 to 50 copies of the virus molecule just as it hits. And it's a direct measurement of the virus, and a very, very different from any other tests that are on the marketplace. We don't have any reagents, which, as you've read, are in short supply, and we have no pre-treatment of the sample, which can take a lot of time. PCR tests, or polymerase chain reaction tests, are an RNA replication process. You take a small sample and you incubate it over and over and over again so that it can be replicated, and you can measure it using standard biochemistry techniques. It's really accurate, and that's what's really great about it, but it's really not point of care, and it's really not that fast. The average industry for a PCR test is roughly 2 hours to get the sample once it's obtained, to get it to a central lab, and another 2 hours to report out on a result. And then it could take days sometimes to get the actual result to the patient. Anyone who knows about this testing knows that this nasopharyngeal is also not all that comfortable. Lateral flow tests, on the other hand, they kind of look like a pregnancy test. They're generally lower in accuracy, but the good news is it takes about 20 minutes only to do the test, and is therefore much more convenient. So the NanoDX system combines the best of both worlds. We have PCR-like accuracy, but with the speed like no other test around. So we believe that having a fast and accurate point of care test is the key to the world getting back to work, getting back to school, getting on airplanes, getting back to playing. We need to test accurately and fast as people queue in lines. And that's really our vision at Nanodiagnostics. In the same time that you can screen people through a metal detector in a large stadium, for example, maybe down in Foxborough, the masses can be tested and get individual test results right away. So they know what line to get into. We even have, sort of a QR code. So we can give people a QR code, they can snapshot of it. And so people can use their own cell phones to gain access to a venue with an exact time and date stamp. And not one based on a test that they did 3 or 4 days ago, but one they did 2 minutes ago. And so the country has been searching for a test that's this fast and accurate. And in fact, CMS in DC just yesterday announced that tests that provide results within 2 days will be reimbursed at a higher rate than those that take even longer. We hope to shortcut that even faster by making it 2 minutes. So overall, our NanoDX system is portable, easy to use, fast, and affordable. And in fact, we've designed the test for ease of use. So we were originally doing this for traumatic brain injuries. So we wanted Coach Joe on the side of the football field to be able to administer this test. So I asked our engineers to design it in such a way that if you could make coffee with a Keurig machine, another Massachusetts company, you could administer our test. And so the device is also IoT connected. So our customers, if they wish to do so, can track the testing and results in real time in a wide variety of environments. May it be a corporation, may it be meat processing plant, a university, or even an airline or a government building. So overall, our technology will make a massive dent in the PCR industry, which is projected to be of over $8 billion by the time 2026 rolls around. And it could change the way that people think about administering a test, a COVID test in particular, or diagnostics in general. So rather than taking a sample and then shipping it in cold storage to a central lab and then waiting for the result, they can be tested right there, right then at the point of care. And so you can see some of our products on nanodiagnostics.com. As I said before, our headquarters are right here in Southborough, Massachusetts. We're really proud members of both MassBio and MassMedic. And I just wanted to thank you all for the opportunity to speak today.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Sherrod. That's awesome overview of where testing fits in and how important it is for us to move forward. Now we're going to move over to Dr. Cedric Francois, who is the co-founder and CEO of Ipadis. And Dr. Francois, could you share a bit about your background at Ipadis and Ipadis' work on a therapeutic to treat those suffering from COVID-19?
Yes, thank you, Bob, and thank you as well for inviting me to speak here. I mean, it's very special for me because I'm Belgian originally, and I still remember coming to Boston for the first time a long time ago and seeing Harvard and MIT and wondering what it would be like to work in a place like this. My personal journey, so I'm an MD PhD by background, is highly unusual. The company that I helped co-found, called Ipadis Pharmaceuticals, did not start in Massachusetts. It started in Louisville, Kentucky, of all places, which is an unusual place, but an amazing city where I ended up through a hand transplantation program in 1999. And with Ipadis Pharmaceuticals in the past 10 years, we have been working on a very old part of our immune system called complement. And this old part was neglected for the longest time until probably about 15 to 20 years ago, when the first kind of therapeutic promise out of that pathway came about. And so a couple of years ago, we grew very quickly. We moved the company from Louisville, Kentucky to Waltham, which is now our home. These are our offices in the background. We're slowly and carefully bringing people back on board. We have more than 250 employees here now. And it's been amazing to be part of this community and to see the interaction between the government, the universities, and our peers in the industry. And just to see everything kind of work together, right? I mean, nanodiagnostics, I remember the paper, Sherrod, in 2002 when the first gated nanowires came out of Charlie Lieber's laboratory, which I assume is the foundations or underlying technology that you are using as well. I mean, it's just unbelievable to see all of that come to fruition. So what we are doing on the COVID front is a little bit different, but well, very different, obviously, from the diagnostics. It is also quite different from the vaccines. And I think it's important for people, in my opinion, to think of what we can do in the context of COVID simplistically in 4 buckets. The first one being the diagnostics. The second one being the vaccines, where we essentially try to prepare us for an eventual exposure to COVID. What we do is we make our immune system familiar with SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19, so that when it actually leads to an exposure in the real world, we are protected and we don't become sick. We all know how that's going. There's super exciting things happening there. We'll talk more about that in today's panel as well. The third category are then the antibodies. We obviously all followed the story with Regeneron's antibodies. There are multiple other companies that are working on this as well. This is essentially trying to give you an accelerated path to vaccination. So rather than having to teach your immune system, when you become sick, you can receive these antibodies and essentially give your immune system the leg up that you would have had if you were vaccinated. So that's kind of another very important element in the armamentarium that we are building. And then the fourth piece, which is the category where our company fits, are companies that are trying to modulate and adjust the immune system as it goes through kind of the bad phases of the disease. So simplistically stated, and this is how I explain it to my children, right? You have the virus, you have your immune system, and the virus gets a head start. And you have about a week probably for your immune system to catch up with that virus, but it replicates so fast that we have a hard time catching up quickly. And then when you enter into week 2, into week 3, into week 4, and your immune system starts becoming exhausted, all types of secondary effects start taking place. And one of those important side effects is that we start forming small blood clots in multiple organs in the body. And those small blood clots are, we believe, heavily influenced by that old part of the immune system called complement. So we currently have a phase 2 clinical trial enrolling 60 subjects to find out if controlling that old part of our immune system can allow us to improve, at the end of the day, the mortality, reduce hospital stays, etc., in patients with COVID-19. And as a class, it fits into these immunomodulators that try to essentially prevent the worst outcome. So thank you again for the privilege of being here, and I look forward to our discussion.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Francois. That's a wonderful way to explain it. And now we're going to hear from Brandon Monk, who's the Senior Vice President of U.S. Plasma-Derived Therapies Business Unit at Takeda. Brandon, can you tell us a bit about yourself and Takeda's work on a therapeutic for COVID-19 that is derived from, many people have heard about it, but I don't think they understand exactly what it is, convalescent plasma from people who have already recovered from COVID-19.
Yeah, hi, Bob, and thanks for having me. Obviously, I have the honor and privilege of leading our U.S. plasma team here in Massachusetts. And, I think it's one of the large life science employers in the state with almost 7,000 employees across 20 different sites. I think we felt like we have a really unique responsibility, but also opportunity to make a difference in public health here in Massachusetts, but also, globally. So like the other panelists, it's a big privilege to be here today with everybody and an opportunity to share a couple updates from a Takeda standpoint. The first is an update on the COVID-19 Plasma Alliance, which maybe some people have seen. I know, Bob, the last time we talked, I spoke about Takeda along with a handful of other leading healthcare companies, basically formed what we call the COVID Plasma Alliance to develop an unbranded therapy using human plasma and really known as a hyperimmune globulin that would contain consistent high levels of antibodies to coronavirus. Simply the purpose of the alliance was to increase the speed and efficiency of not only collecting plasma, manufacturing plasma, and creating regulatory partnerships so that we could ultimately get to a trial. Last week, it's exciting to kind of share with everybody that we reached an exciting milestone in the start of the inpatient treatment with anti-coronavirus immune globulin. That's a little bit of a mouthful. I think we call it ITAC. That started its phase 3 trial, which is sponsored by the NIH. The trial is expected to enroll about 500 adult patients through 58 sites in the United States and Mexico and around the world that are ultimately looking at patients who have been hospitalized for COVID-19 and have symptoms for 12 days or fewer without life-saving threatening conditions. You know, immune globulins, whether it's standard use or hyperimmunes, they work by mimicking the natural defense system in the body. Maybe to use Dr. Francois' analogy, maybe trying to explain this to my kids, you know, in general, you know, IG is used, and think of it, you put IG in the human body, it fills up the tank, if you will, of what normally your body produces to fight off disease. If we think about that same analogy for hyperimmunes, essentially we're giving it supercharged fuel, in essence, IG that has a very targeted focus on the antibody for COVID-19. And that's really the hypothesis around the work in the trial, that one that we hope to have really good news about in obviously later on in the year. Hyperimmune globulins, as we've talked about, have been found effective over the years. This one is really focused on treating potential high-risk patients for COVID-19. I think we also talked a little about before the call to action around donation and how important that is, and really encouraging folks who have recovered from COVID-19 to donate plasma. And that's why we also were founding members of what we call the Fight As In Us Coalition and campaign, which is a lot of different companies, not just plasma manufacturers, healthcare companies, Microsoft, Google, to name a few. But that overall need to raise awareness continues today throughout the country. And if people want to learn more, they can go to fightasinus.org to learn more about, you know, donating convalescent plasma. Maybe the second update that I would love to share is regarding the source plasma donation legislation. Some of you may be aware that currently there's no plasma donation centers within the state of Massachusetts. Takeda is supporting legislation along with PPTA, which is the Plasma Trade Association, and other plasma manufacturers to allow for plasma collection and donation centers in Massachusetts. This legislation has been filed by Representative Mahoney as well as Senator Moore. The legislation, I think, would really, the way I think about it, would really modernize the regulatory framework and the safety standards that would allow for collection centers in Massachusetts. And I think it's really big to know that would open up a whole new era of biopharmaceutical industry, including plasma-derived therapies, as well as connect across the entire Commonwealth, you know, the economic engine that is around, you know, plasma collection and donation. So, you know, the urgent need both for COVID-19 survivors to donate, but also donations for source plasma is there today. And, you know, there are hundreds of thousands of people every day that rely on plasma-derived therapies. So that's the quick update in the 10 minutes, Bob. Hopefully that helps, and happy to answer questions at the end.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Brandon. And as the audience can see, we've got a panelist that addressed diagnostic testing. We have a couple of panelists that have different approaches to therapies at Therapeutics. And now, certainly last but not least, we're going to allow me to introduce Dr. Margaret Rusch, who is the Vice President of Pfizer Worldwide Research, Development, and Medical for Biotherapeutics and Pharmaceutical Sciences. And Meg, we all look forward to hearing a bit about your background and about Pfizer's work to actually develop a COVID-19 vaccine.
Thanks. It's great to be here. Really appreciate the invitation. So as Bob said, my name is Meg Rusch, and I'm the Pfizer Research and Development and Medical Lead in our Andover, Massachusetts location. We have about 1,200 employees in Andover. So it's really an honor to be able to represent to you the great work our Andover colleagues are doing in the COVID-19 vaccine. A little bit about myself. I'm a biologist by training. I have an undergraduate degree from Notre Dame and a PhD from Northwestern. And my family and I relocated to Massachusetts about 3 or 4 years ago, and we live in Lexington. So the Andover site is really a very important Pfizer network manufacturing facility, and we make other life-saving medications such as Prevnar vaccine and Benefix, which is a recombinant factor IX treatment for hemophilia. So we have a unique role. We're like a joint research, development, and manufacturing location, and we play a critical role in developing new biotherapeutics, gene therapies, and vaccines. So it was, of course, a natural fit that we would be involved in Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine program. Our role as a development organization is really to translate a research idea into an actual medication that can be manufactured consistently, with enough quantity at the right scale, and of course with the highest attention to quality so that we can distribute it to the patients who need it. So our Andover scientists are now applying our expertise to manufacture the Pfizer and BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine candidate so that we can produce as many doses as possible should it become successful in clinical trials. As you might have read already, the Pfizer and BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine program is based on BioNTech's proprietary mRNA-based technology platforms. Pfizer's already announced positive preliminary top-line findings from the ongoing phase 1/2 trial. And on July 27th, we announced the start of the large phase 2/3 efficacy trial for this COVID-19 vaccine. Our vaccine is an mRNA vaccine. So mRNA is composed of nucleotide units linked in a specific order that give the genetic instructions to make one protein antigen specific, in this case for SARS-CoV-2, which is the virus that causes COVID-19. So once inside the vaccinated person's cells, the mRNA gives our cells some instructions to make that antigen to potentially then generate a strong immune response against the virus. So what are we doing right here in Andover? We are manufacturing the RNA, what we call RNA drug substance, for the vaccine right here in Andover. The RNA is purified to ensure it meets the highest level of quality and consistency, and we ship that purified RNA to other Pfizer facilities for finished drug product manufacturing, like in filling into vials. So we ship that to Kalamazoo, Michigan and Poors, Belgium. So I want to comment that really our ability to make RNA with the speed and quality we've been able to achieve in Andover is due to the great scientists, engineers, and staff we have at the facility. As I mentioned, we have about 1,200 colleagues. We also really have been able to move quickly and with quality because of investments we've made in our facilities here in Massachusetts. Specifically in Andover, we opened a flexible state-of-the-art manufacturing facility just in 2019, and we're using that to make our RNA drug substance. So I'll close there and just want to share that how proud I am to be working in a pharmaceutical company right now and at Pfizer here in Massachusetts. And we will believe more than ever science will win. Turn it back to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Meg. And I mean, this is such an uplifting conversation. And when I can't help but, I don't want to brag here about Massachusetts, but I'm gonna, and all the people who are in the audience should feel proud as well. If you look at what we're talking about here, you have the diagnostics, the therapeutics, and the vaccines. And when you think about these companies, right, including, if you look at Cedric, we recruited them from Kentucky. Meg was talking about relocating her family here. Takeda is the largest employer in the life sciences here in Massachusetts, and Sharon's company, NanoDx, was leading the way as it relates to testing for concussions before this happened. Like, these are all serious, important unmet medical needs that we're addressing. And think about why it happened, ladies and gentlemen. It didn't happen just because of the science. All of this happened because of workforce, talent. Meg, you talk about the facilities, right? If we didn't have the engineers and the people, the biomanufacturing workforce here, we wouldn't be able to build make what you're making here. So it's really all of these different ingredients that need to be here so that we can stay on top and lead the way. And that doesn't happen without our partners in government. I want to remind folks, I do see some questions coming in, so keep your questions coming in. But before we go to the open questions, and I will get to them, we have right now about 20 minutes left, folks. So I want to do some rapid questions, and then let's get some questions for the audience. This is your chance. We have an amazing panel here that is leading the world, really, as it relates to COVID-19 research. So one, let's go, a lot of people have talked, Meg, you just talked about vaccines. We know that's really important. I think a lot of people don't understand the importance of therapies as well. Some people have said to me, if you have a vaccine, why do you need therapies? Well, you do need therapies. I can't help but think that my son with cystic fibrosis years ago, if he got influenza, if he got the flu, we had a headache, but we had the ability to immediately put him on Tamiflu and help him resolve this issue before he got too sick and it could be fatal for him. This is going to go to Brandon and perhaps Cedric as well. Could you guys just talk a little bit about why therapeutics are a critical component of care for COVID-19 for patients as well? It's important for the audience to understand. So why don't we go to Brandon first?
Yeah, and first of all, I just want to super applaud everybody, not only on this panel, but in all of Massachusetts and the world. The collaboration across the industry to fight this pandemic has been remarkable and amazing. And I think a lot of things that we're going to learn over time on how to do this again. I think optionality is really important, and having multiple treatment options, whether that may be prevention or treatment, is going to be really critical as we navigate the next several years. And there also, what I would mark is there are certain patient populations where prevention may not work. If I think about the primary immune deficient patient population that typically can't have vaccines, they're going to need other treatment options, whether that be monoclonal antibodies or that be polyclonal, like you would think about a hyperimmune globulin. So I think optionality is great. I think the more the better. I have a lot of faith in our healthcare system that we'll figure out how to navigate the different options, and just really want to applaud all the investment and all the focus and the collaboration across the industry.
Yeah, and before we go to Cedric, if you could add a little color to that as well, as far as therapeutics go and the important role it plays in moving forward here, I just do want to add the collaboration. Okay, and I've been involved, I've been here at MassBio for over 13 years, and I've been involved with the industry for 18 years, working on trying to find a therapy for my own son. I have never seen collaboration like this. This is unprecedented, and it's so good because people talk about Operation Warp Speed and what we're doing for COVID. Imagine if we could have an Operation Warp Speed for all the different types of cancer, or Huntington's, or Parkinson's, or ALS, or Alzheimer's, right? I think we're going to get to that point. Cedric, can you add a little color about the therapeutic piece?
Yeah, I love that you mentioned it, and Brendan said it very, very well, right? I mean, the vaccines are super important and super exciting. The reality also is that before we get to the point where the vaccines are widely available, that will unfortunately take a little bit of time. The whole point of a vaccine is that you give it ideally to everyone, right? And that presents a logistical challenge that is quite daunting. On top of that, older people may be, less prone to develop immunity when they even get vaccinated. So there's a lot of work to be done with this incredibly exciting solution in the long run. But the key is that in the meantime, before we get widely spread available vaccines, people are still going to get sick. And when they get sick, we need to have therapeutics available to ourselves to be able to prevent the worst outcome, to be able to prevent not just death, but also ultimately, long COVID is getting, what people call long COVID is getting more and more attention, where, it doesn't seem to be just something that kills you, but something that in the long run could also have secondary consequences. So good therapeutics, while we hopefully can control this with vaccines, are going to be very important in the next couple of years.
Thank you so much. Let's go back to testing, all right? There's an ongoing debate, Sharad, about the proper role of testing, right, in helping to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Can you give your perspective on how Massachusetts and more broadly the U.S. could better utilize testing?
Sure, absolutely. Well, first of all, it really needs to be said, this is just an awful disease. Even with those who actually, get it and they recover, they have lasting effects. So listening to the science is absolutely key. And it's really especially dangerous because, it spreads so quickly. And many people don't even have symptoms. They're asymptomatic and continue to spread it. So because of lack of testing, people can only get tested right now only after they have symptoms. So there's a massive disconnect here. So all of us are hoping, for everyone to get back to sort of work and back to the community, back to play, to all places that we enjoyed before. And I believe we can do that again, but the way to do it is really to have an integrated, reliable, fast, and portable testing to kind of turn back on our social engagement. It's something that we thrive as human beings to have. And so the foreseeable future will need to be testing and certifying people cleared for community interactions, right? And we need to do that right at the point of care. Of course, this comes in conjunction with the promise of therapeutics and vaccines that are coming. I think that's really exciting here, and everything I've heard today is very exciting, very impressive. But we'll need the best tools in the toolbox to get back to normal. So in my view, reliable, fast testing is part of that equation, and gaining access and spreading and manufacturing and scaling is really key to doing it all.
All right, let me throw you another question from the audience. And I know we're not at the question from the audience period as of yet, but I guess we are now. Why don't we use the NanoDx testing devices right now to test every school student and staff member twice a week? What would something like that cost? Why can't we do it?
Well, certainly, we're not quite on the market yet, but we will be shortly. So we'll be able to change that trajectory very soon. We've already started to talk to a lot of, schools, universities, the education commissioner right here in Massachusetts, Jeff Riley, he was quoted the other day as saying that, COVID is not, sort of super spreading in K through 12 schools, but it is significantly in colleges, and of which Boston and Massachusetts and New England has a ton, nursing homes and jails. And so since our test is very portable, needs to be generally deployable, whether it's our test or anyone else's. It needs to be easily deployed and easily implemented in an area where we see a spike coming. And so that really is kind of a key to kind of getting that testing and acknowledgement right away.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And we hope, let's hope this happens soon, right? And I just want to reassure everybody on the call, in the audience here. I see it. I have a front row seat, and the entire team here at MassBio cannot believe how committed and persistent and how hard our industry is working to try to do this. We realize how important this is and how horrible this has been to our economy and to society and to families and individuals. So we want to keep doing that. Meg, I'm going to jump over to you, and I don't want to put you on the spot, and maybe you can offer an opinion here, but you're in the vaccine business, right? And that's what you do. And, I'm so grateful for vaccines, and we know so many people are, but recent polls suggest that fewer Americans are willing to take a COVID-19 vaccine as soon as it's possible. Some people are concerned that the regulatory approval process has been politicized. I don't think that's the case. I have complete faith in the FDA and our regulatory bodies, and I have complete faith. I read the open letter that Albert Bourla, your CEO, sent out to the public saying, this is going to be safe and effective, or it's not happening, right? This is a priority, obviously. So what would you say, what can industry do? What can MassBio do? What can the Pfizers of the world, all of our companies do to try to reassure the public that we're doing this the right way and that it won't be done quicker without holding it to the standards that we have in the past?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I was definitely going to refer to our Pfizer CEO's open letter about, we will go at the speed of science is what his letter stated, and, not about a political pressure. I think what I can offer is my personal viewpoint from sort of where I sit, which is involvement and leadership of our capability to make a key part of the vaccine, the RNA. So, a big part of being able to provide a vaccine is that ability to make it consistently and with high quality. And, this is what we do for a living. This is what our facility does for a living, and the scientists there, and we're ready for it. We've been doing the same quality scientific work we do for any product we make. We don't cut any corners. So I think maybe, each of us can continue to speak about our role and vantage point. And, I will say we just have been working harder, hired more people, done more things sort of at risk, meaning earlier than we might normally do it, to be ready to have a high quality supply that for as many patients as possible.
Could you talk a little bit more about that so folks understand, Meg? The people have said to me, well, if it took 4 years to invent a vaccine in the past, how come companies can do it so much quicker now? And it's not just the science, it's also taking on more risk, like i.e. manufacturing stuff before it's approved, correct? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Right. So it is one of the advantages of an RNA vaccine platform is that you can, with the genetic sequence, go relatively quickly into a vaccine made of RNA versus having to make the part of the virus itself at large scale in cells. So there is some technical advantage of RNA vaccines that does make them a little bit quicker to be able to be made. And then the key point is what you just said. We're doing things, pulling things in early, investing a lot. Pfizer's invested their own money in scaling up and being able to make the vaccine in advance of knowing if it's effective yet. One example I can provide is, early on, there were 4 potential vaccine candidates, meaning 4 different RNA sequences. And we're a manufacturing organization and development organization. We learned and developed the process to make any of those so that when the clinical selection was made, it's this one, we were ready. So that's just like a small example of how we, in the past that might have happened in more sequence, we'd wait for that decision and start manufacturing. So pulled those things in early and we're ready for, ready with much more vaccine, much more product than we normally would be pending clinical and regulatory success.
Thank you, Meg. That's interesting. It's so important for our partners in government to understand the risk that is being taken by companies like yours and many, many others. Sharad, the audience isn't letting me off the hook here. They want to know, is there a range? Is there any public information that's out there about the range of cost for a PCR test and what it should be? I'm not asking you to say anything that you can't talk about just yet, but do you have anything in mind?
Sure. So, tests range quite a bit, from anywhere from about $20 all the way up to $150. Some people have been quoted as $200 for each test. And that has a lot to do with how accurate the test that you're taking is. A lot of those lateral flow tests that are look like a little pregnancy test, they take about 20 minutes to take, but unfortunately, they're really just not that accurate. So even if you're using it as a screening to get into a room with, say, 20 people in it, and as many as 3 people could have COVID in there, that's a recipe for disaster, because everyone has a false sense of security on that. So I think it's really important that we have, high accuracy testing and good technology. And I think ultimately, we're, as a company like ours, we need to work with sort of our, federal and local governments to give access to as much testing to as many people in an affordable way as we possibly can. And I think all of the companies collectively are trying to do so.
All right. Well, thank you for that. And folks, we only have about 4 minutes left, and I want to close it out strong, but I want a rapid answer from each and every one of you that talks about the future. I'm going to start with Brandon, then I'm going to go over to Cedric, and then I'll go to Meg and Sharad. But just wrap this up. Tell me what you think the next 3 to 6 months looks like in the area of testing, vaccines, or diagnostics. And do you think the future is bright? Let's start with you, Brandon.
I think the future is bright. I think the next 6 months, we're just going to have an incredible amount of data across so many different options, and things are going to continue to become more efficient. I'm optimistic. I'm already planning a spring break vacation somewhere, and we're going to get on.
There you go.
And we're going to make it happen.
Cedric, how about you?
Yeah, I think kind of on the same timeline as Brandon here. I think in the spring things will that's kind of the timeline that I think where things will start to clear up. There's a lot of stuff coming out between now and then that will help us. Unfortunately, I think in the weeks ahead we are in for a rough fall. So between now and the new year, I think it's really important that we stick to the measures that we all know work. Right? Wear masks, social distancing, and washing hands. It's kind of unfortunate to see how that has been politicized, and kind of incredible to see how that simple recipe somehow ended up politicized in our country. But hopefully we all do that well as the other and better solutions come around. And
Thank
you
you
again,
so
Bob, for
much.
inviting
Hey,
us.
thank you so much for that. And as an MD and PhD, I'm going to listen to you, and I will wear my mask, and I will stay socially, physically distanced, and do everything. Wash my hands, not touch my eyes. I mean, everything that we can do to try to avoid this. Meg, why don't we go over to you next? And again, thank you for what you're doing in the vaccine space.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an incredibly interesting next few months. And like everyone else, we're anxiously awaiting the data on whether the vaccine, our vaccine or others' vaccines are efficacious. And I think our CEOs come out and said we could know by the end of October. Certainly we're continuing to plan for success so that we can make as much dose as possible, but we really are all waiting to hear and hopeful, and we certainly want to get back to normal as well.
All right, and how about you, Sharad?
Well, you said 3 to 6 months. I would argue that we need to do two things in the next 3 to 36 months. We need to build good tools with our scientists to generate data-driven technology that we can all rely on. And then the second thing we need to do is we need to work closely with our political leaders to clear barriers to approvals and open up logistic channels to implement the technology everywhere we need it. And if we do those two things, the future is definitely bright.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to wrap it up now. And I want to start by thanking, I want to end by thanking these amazing panelists. And I'm sure that all of you will agree to have, NanoDx and Pfizer and Takeda and Ipadis right here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts doing this amazing work that is going to get our world back on track, right? At least from a pandemic standpoint. That is so important. And I want to thank all of you for viewing, and to the staffers out there. We talk a lot about the reps and senators that are elected to office. And again, at MassBio, we can't thank them enough for their leadership. We have the best legislature in the United States of America for this industry. I mean, my colleagues from all over the country are envious of the commitment that lawmakers here in Massachusetts have towards not just creating, but holding on to the stature that we have in this industry, because it is so important for patients. But we know it's the staff members that do the lion's share of the work. And we try to provide these educational seminars so that it gives you an idea of what's going on out in your district so that you can do the amazing work that you do supporting the members that you work for. So for that, we can't thank all of you enough for participating. Like I said earlier, Massachusetts is leading the way. Science will get this out of this. I can't wait until we can all meet in person again. I'm not a big fan of Zoom calls and hanging out in a room by myself. As you can tell, I've always been kind of a people person, a little social, but we're going to do the best we can to hang in there. I can't wait to see all of you in person in the spring, because I'm hoping we can be back in, Q3, Q4, and definitely 2022 will be there. But you can rest assured that your partners at MassBio are going to continue to do the best they can to interact with you and make sure that we stay on top, because the patients are waiting and our society's waiting, the economy's waiting, and we want to get things back. So thank you. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for tuning in today. And again, thank you to Chairman Wagner, and thank you to Chairman Boncory, and the leader and the senator have been so committed to us. We can't thank you enough.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.